The Oath Keeper and the Last Wyvern's Curse. The fortress of Cloud Falcon stood at the edge of the world, carved into a mountain peak that pierced the clouds. And in its highest tower, the old king, Rod, was breathing his last. Beside him was not his vizier or his general, but a lean young man named Amin, the youngest of the Oath Keepers in the kingdom, an honorary position given to those with the purest hearts to carry sacred royal messages. The king gripped Amin's hand with a strength unexpected from a dying man and said in a voice as ragged as the wind between the rocks, "Listen to me, boy. The oath is not to the words, but to the intention. True loyalty is to protect the spirit of the covenant, not merely its ink. Protect the peace, Amin, protect it with your life." A faint smile touched the king's lips, then his head lolled to the side, and his spirit departed. At that moment, Prince Barkan, the king's younger brother, entered the room, a large man with the cold, predatory gaze of a hawk. He looked at his brother's body without a flicker of emotion, then turned to Amin. He said in a commanding voice, "The king is gone, but his final will must be carried out. Take this." He placed in Amin's hand a small metal cylinder, sealed with a wax stamp bearing the royal dragon crest. "This is the final peace treaty with the Ice Kingdom. It must reach King Jalmaud before the blood moon is full in 3 days, or a devastating war will break out. This is a map of the fastest route through the Whispering Valleys. Your wyvern, Bark, our strongest beast, will accompany you. Go now, for the fate of the kingdom is in your hands." Amin took the map and the cylinder and bowed respectfully, but he felt a strange coldness seep into his blood. He knew that the Whispering Valleys was a graveyard for flyers, a cursed place inhabited by dark beasts called the Wailers. Why would the prince send him through the most dangerous route possible? So, what will happen to Amin on this perilous path? And what adventure awaits us? Stay with us and watch the video to the end to find out what happened. When Amin reached the wyvern roost at the top of the tower, he found his companion, Bark, in a state of extreme agitation. Bark was a blue-scaled wyvern with intelligent, hawk-like eyes. The beast refused to let Amin approach, hissing aggressively and spitting small electric sparks from between its teeth. These beasts could sense deceit as animals sense an earthquake before it strikes. Amin spent a full hour trying to calm him, and finally, after feeding him by hand and whispering words of trust, the beast allowed him to mount its back. Bark launched into the air like an arrow, but not before casting one last, distrustful glance towards Prince Barkan, who was watching them from a tower balcony. The Whispering Valleys were worse than they had imagined. It was a maze of narrow, dark rock passages, and the wind made sounds like the whispers of tormented souls. Suddenly, the Wailers attacked them. They were creatures resembling humanoid bats, with leathery wings, pale faces, and mouths full of sharp teeth. They would let out high-pitched screams that could shatter rock and burst eardrums. A desperate aerial battle began. Bark skillfully dodged the sonic screams and fired bolts of electricity that struck the Wailers and sent them falling. Amin tried to protect the metal cylinder with his body, remembering his king's will. As he dodged an attack, one of the Wailers collided with the leather bag carrying the cylinder and tore it. The cylinder fell from Bark's back and plummeted into the darkness towards a deep chasm at the bottom of the valley. "The oath!" Amin shouted. Without thinking, he jumped after it. He plunged into the cold air, his heart racing, his eyes fixed on the gleaming piece of metal falling below him. And at the last moment, Bark swooped like a lightning bolt from beneath him and caught him in its talons before he could hit the sharp rocks, landing at the bottom of the dark, damp chasm. Amin found the cylinder gleaming faintly beside a pool of murky water. He picked it up and felt a moment of relief, but that relief did not last long. From the depths of the pool, a huge head with green scales and two glowing yellow eyes like small suns rose. It was a legendary, giant serpent, the ancient guardian of the valley. The serpent opened its massive jaws and lunged at Amin. Amin rolled away at the last second, dodging the fangs that sank into the rock where he had been. He drew his small dagger, which looked like a toy before the size of the beast. An unequal struggle began. And at the moment the serpent was about to coil around him and crush him, Bark fired a ball of blue fire from its jaws that struck the beast's left eye. The serpent roared a deafening roar of pain and began to thrash violently, smashing the rocks around it. Amin took this opportunity, jumped onto the beast's back, climbed towards its head, and plunged his dagger with all his might into a weak spot between its hard scales. The giant serpent's body shuddered for a final moment, then fell into the pool, creating a huge wave. Amin climbed out, exhausted and covered in mud. Bark looked at him and let out a low rumble of respect. Amin took the cylinder to inspect it and was shocked by what he saw. It had been damaged in the fight, and the wax seal was completely shattered. The blood froze in his veins. Opening the covenant was the greatest betrayal. But something pushed him to look inside. He opened the cylinder with trembling fingers and took out the leather scroll from within. And it was the shock that changed everything. The message was not a peace treaty. It was a magical incantation written in black ink that pulsed with an evil energy. It was an ancient curse that, if read before the Ice King, would freeze his heart and afflict his army with weakness and frailty, making the kingdom an easy prey for Prince Barkan's army, which was surely marching towards them at this very moment. Amin realized the horrifying truth. He was not a messenger of peace, but a treacherous weapon. He had fallen into a well-laid trap. The prince had ordered him to deliver the cylinder, but the king's last words echoed in his ears: "True loyalty is to protect the spirit of the covenant. Protect the peace." What should he do now? Obey the order of the acting prince, or obey the will of his dead king? Amin placed his hand on Bark's neck. The wyvern let out a deep rumble and looked towards the Ice Kingdom, as if to say, "I am with you, whatever your decision." And Amin made his decision. They set off at top speed, not away from the Ice Kingdom, but directly towards its heart. When the guards of the ice fortress saw them, they raised the alarm. Bark landed in the middle of the palace courtyard, amidst dozens of soldiers aiming their arrows at them. Amin shouted at the top of his lungs, "I come with a message from King Araid. I have come to warn you of a betrayal." Amin was taken as a prisoner to the throne room, where King Jalmaud sat on a throne made of pure ice. He was a formidable man with a long white beard. Amin stood before him and told him everything, presenting the cursed scroll as proof. King Jalmaud looked at the scroll, then at Amin's honest eyes. And he said in a deep voice like the roar of an avalanche, "You are either the bravest man I have ever met, or the most deceitful. But I see no deception in your eyes." And at that moment, the sound of a war horn echoed from outside the fortress. Prince Barkan's army had arrived. King Jalmaud smiled an icy smile and said, "You have honored the spirit of the covenant, O keeper of the peace. You have saved us from their treachery, and now we will show them the true power of ice." Amin came out of the throne room, not as a prisoner, but as a hero. He mounted Barkan's sword into the sky, to fight side by side with the army of ice against the army of treachery and betrayal. And here, we reach the hub of the story and its wisdom. This story guides us to understand that true loyalty is not just blind obedience to orders or a literal adherence to words. It is a deep understanding of the spirit of the trust that was placed in you. If you were in Amin's place and discovered the secret of the message, would you have obeyed the prince's order, or would you have followed the last will of the king? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to thank you, our dear followers, for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe to The Alchemist's Tales to discover a new depth in our next tale.